I, Mrs. Melly Menezes Fernandez, teacher of Don Bosco High School, Panjim, would like to extend a warm welcome to each one of you present here to be a part of today's seminar on the theme, Revisiting the Education System of Don Bosco in the Light of Modern Challenges in Education Today. I request our dignitaries, our speakers, and principals of our various Salesian schools to kindly take their respective places. I request the principals of our schools to kindly take the first seats on the first row. To invoke God's blessings on today's program, we shall now light the traditional lamp. I request our Provincial, Reverend Father Ian Figueredo, Vice Provincial, Reverend Father Paul D'Souza, Rector of Don Bosco Panjim, Father Savio Gomes, Head of the Education Commission, Reverend Father Tamatur Cardoz, and Principal of Don Bosco College Panjim, Dr. Raju George, to kindly come up to light the lamp. I now request Reverend Father Savio Gomes, Rector of Don Bosco Panjim, to address today's gathering with his words of welcome.
Reverend Father Ian Figueredo, our Provincial and Chief Guest for today's function, respected speakers, my fellow Salesians, and you, dear teachers of all our Don Bosco institutions. On behalf of Father Provincial, who is the chairperson, the chairman of all our Don Bosco institutions of the Konkan province, I extend to each one of you a warm welcome. Welcome to Don Bosco Panjim. And to all those who are coming from outside Goa, a warm welcome to our beautiful state of Goa. Today's seminar is part of the bicentenary celebrations of the birth of Don Bosco. Don Bosco, our father and founder, was born in the year 1815, and he completes 200 years of his birth on the 16th of August 2015. So this whole year we are having a series of celebrations basically meant for our renewal, for going back to our roots, going back to Don Bosco and his system of education. This seminar is part of this celebration, returning to Don Bosco to walk forward with him in the service of the young. The theme of this seminar is revisiting the educational system of Don Bosco in the light of challenges in education today. And so we have eminent speakers who shall be presenting this theme to you. The first session will be on challenges and modern trends in education today. This will be presented by the team from Parisar Asha, Mumbai. In the second session we have Father Godfrey Disa, a Don Bosco priest from Mumbai, a renowned psychologist who will speak on the issues affecting youngsters today. And then after our lunch break we have Father Glenn Lowe, again a Don Bosco priest from Mumbai, who will speak on the Salesian educator, living the legacy today. Principled, professional, passionate and prophetic. I'm sure, my dear friends, you're going to really enjoy the input you will receive at this seminar. And my wish is that we just don't enjoy it over here, but we imbibe all that we have learned so that we can put it into practice in our schools wherever we go. Once again, a warm welcome to each of you. Do enjoy yourselves on our campus. Thank you.
I now request Chief Guest of today's program, Provincial of Panjim Province, Reverend Father Ian Figueredo, to deliver the keynote address.
Respected speakers for the day, principals of Don Bosco's institutions, Salesians, and all of you, my dear lay collaborators. What would you expect a man who has dedicated 40 years of his life to the task of education to say when he is asked, is Don Bosco's system relevant to today? I dare say that if you were to ask me to put it in percentages, I would say that to 95% I have been successful when I implemented the Don Bosco system of education. 5% is for my failings and also for the fact that I'm not dealing with inanimate material. I'm dealing with human beings who have the gift of freedom, who can choose to say no to any effort made, however generously, to the challenge to grow. But let me tell you that I can add another 3% because I have realized that when a youngster is in the process of growth, he or she very often says no. But after a while, when you encounter such a person, you marvel at the fact that he or she, who was slow to respond, who was apparently hard-hearted, has now decided enough is enough. I need to take charge of my life. And what I learned when I was in Don Bosco's has stood me in good stead, even though perhaps a little late in my life, but I am what I am because of what Don Bosco contributed to my life. My dear friends, Don Bosco's work has been done by his followers, the Salesians of Don Bosco, for about 165 years. They dedicate themselves to young people in Don Bosco's footsteps. There was a time when Don Bosco dreamt of a community where everyone, married or single, priest or layperson, who wanted to work with the young, was welcome to join him. But at that time, in the 19th century, this idea was far too revolutionary for the church to which Don Bosco belonged. But today, Don Bosco's dream has become true. An increasing number of laymen and women work, paid or voluntary, in the various Don Bosco centers. If we were to look around here itself, what would you say? We are here, Don Bosco fathers and brothers, a handful. But look at the number of lay people among you who are collaborating in the mission of education. Interestingly, though the original inspiration for Don Bosco's system was Christian, Don Bosco was a priest, a Catholic priest. Over a period of time, people of different beliefs and philosophies of life agree with Don Bosco's method of working and educating. They feel concerned about the questions of the young and find in the preventive system what we call the Don Bosco method of working, the inspirations and attitudes necessary for genuine education to take place. I think it would be worthwhile asking ourselves, why did Don Bosco call it the preventive system? It sounds negative. Friends, Don Bosco used the word preventive to distinguish it from the repressive system which was common in those days. I make the rules known. I look out. You have broken the rule. I punish you severely, and then I let you off with a warning. Don Bosco said, this is good for the army. This is good with mature people, but I'm dealing with youngsters and I need a different system. In his preventive system, the concern is not so much about defending from dangers for fear of the risks and eventual mistakes. But in the preventive system, we commit ourselves to propose, to stimulate, to enlarge the vision, to encourage the person to become what he or she was meant to be. In other words, to realize himself in accordance with what he or she intuits is the purpose for which he or she is in this world. And so I help, I propose, I guide. So it's not so much about, all the while preventing mistakes. Now, the increasing number and diversity of Don Bosco's educators here means that the demand for support and information is growing. The question asked frequently today by those who are concerned about the welfare of young people is, what do I do to help this young person? And Don Bosco educators, and I hope you find yourselves among them, and we too, are looking for the answers to questions such as, what is the relevance of Don Bosco in the 21st century? Don Bosco was an educator in the 1815 to 1888. What is his relevance today? Or what is the core of Don Bosco's educative system? My dear friends, it is crucial that we all who work in a Don Bosco institution agree with Don Bosco's educative system. We agree on how a Don Bosco educator should work with youth and youngsters. And I believe that is one of the major concerns of this seminar today. Is Don Bosco's system relevant? And I, who am working in a Don Bosco institution, what is expected of me as a Don Bosco educator. It is important to note, when we talk about the Don Bosco system, those of us who work in Don Bosco's educative system must have a few attitudes clear. The first one is, it is not possible to be a Salesian educator if you do not have real love for young people. And that means respecting the values of the young, however diverse they are from the values you hold. A mother says to his or her, to her child, to her daughter, to her son, "What are you going for a party with this yellow color in your hair?" She's going, that's her value, that's his value. And if you determine, no, you will go like me with black hair, there is going to be a confrontation. I'm not saying that what the child is going to do is good, but there is another way of doing it. And at this moment, this is not the right time to criticize your son or daughter who is all ready to go to the party with his or her friends who are going to come dressed this way. So I need to respect the values, I need to be able to be reasonable, and I need to be creative and flexible, which becomes difficult as we go on in life. Secondly, the Don Bosco educative system does not apply merely to working hours from 9 to 5. It will not work that way. And I sometimes feel, if I were a parent, after I finished my schooling, I would also practice the preventive system with my children at home. Of course, it's easy to say that because I don't have those of my own, but it's like that. It is a way of being. It's not only limited to times. Henri Guillon, who was a French authority on Don Bosco, he writes this: "For never less than 19 hours of each day, Don Bosco was on duty. And he lived thus for 45 years. That was the price he paid to keep his work going, and he succeeded." You get an idea that the preventive system will not work if I'm not convinced, if it's not part of me, if it's just something that I put on and I put off. It doesn't work that way. And the third principle, my dear friends, would be that a Don Bosco educator should keep reading, should keep studying about education. Because today the educational sciences offer us umpteen insights into how to promote the growth of a young person. And so we need to take care of our head, our knowledge, our experience, our working with young people, and the need of becoming familiar with Don Bosco's spirituality, which is simply, can be summarized in these words: working with your heart. All right. Now, if you allow me, because I was given the time, but now since the current has come a little late, I'll take another few minutes. Is Don Bosco's system relevant for today, in the modern 21st century? I've said from my experience, yes. But let me give you the reasons, a few of them, why I hold this. The modernization of the society which began in Don Bosco's time continues today. It's true that the socio-economic realities of our countries at the beginning of the 21st century are so different from the ones prevailing in Turin in the 19th century. However, there are some common characteristics. that of a society with infinite possibilities, but basically in crisis. I hope I'm not sounding pessimistic, but that's the fact. There are possibilities, but there is also the factor of a crisis. I would also say one of our Indian challenges today is we are largely a youthful population. Our Prime Minister went to the United States and said this very recently. We are a young nation. In Don Bosco's days, again, people were experiencing several transitions, from a farm to an industrial society, from a rural society to an urban one, from monarchy to a republic. Aren't we facing the same today? There is this whole society in transition. Again, youngsters have questions. They had questions in Don Bosco's time, they have questions today. I would like to know whether you believe they are different from the questions that Don Bosco's youngsters had in their times. What am I doing here? What is the use of my life? What are my skills and abilities? What is value? For what projects do I want to work? These were the questions the boys of Don Bosco's time asked. They are the questions that youngsters today have. But perhaps we don't have the time, perhaps we don't have the interest to elicit these questions from them and dialogue then to come to an answer. And so we are giving the youngsters what they naturally want, and then we say they're not really interested in deep questions, which is not true. Which is not true. Because when the youngster doesn't find an answer to his or her questions, he or she commits suicide, he or she goes into depression, or he or she just runs away from life. My dear friends, another similarity in Don Bosco's time is that there are still youngsters, and in India a large number of them, who are on the margins of society. The homeless, the migrants, the child laborers, the teenage dropouts, and therefore at risk. Dropouts who do not get the opportunities that others have, or who are looking for meaning in this affluent society. Don Bosco educators choose by preference to work with these. Because Don Bosco's educative system was largely formulated around the kind of children he was working with. You would know that he once went to a Jesuit boarding. He was sent there as a young priest. It was a boarding for affluent youth. And he came out with this conclusion: my system will not work with such people. I leave you to decide. I don't say you should say 100% Don Bosco system doesn't work. I don't say that. But it works better with. Well, my dear friends, coming to the conclusion, because I know my time is up. Has Don Bosco's system worked? I would like to tell you what others have said, since you may not believe, you may think I'm advertising for my society. An Italian politician, Giovanni Giolitti, wrote, I value most highly the Salesians and their prodigious educative activity, which shows itself in terms of a most praiseworthy contribution to the nation, producing excellent professional men and upright workmen. Then he makes a confession. It is not easy to shape Italians, he says. Don Bosco has succeeded. It is a great triumph for him and a great piece of good fortune for the nation. And today, since we are celebrating Saint John the 23rd, I have also a quotation of what he said about Don Bosco. He says, Don Bosco still lives in the charm which he exercises over young people. He in fact has the rare capacity of being able to welcome and to understand the aspirations of youth. And of course, understanding them, he responds to them. Well, my dear lay collaborators and all of you gathered here this morning, I can go on, but I leave the stage to my more noteworthy speakers who will enlighten you further and deeper. But I would say this one thing. If you truly love young people, if you truly spend time with them, not only filling their mind with academic information for exams, that is not the objective of a Don Bosco institution. If you have come across a Don Bosco principal who tells you this, no, in this we don't talk about value education, we are not bothered about human rights education, we are not bothered about good manners, you only get 100%, you please send him to me. I will try to deal with him with persuasion and with instruction. But if you have these skills and the love for young people, you will see, may not be immediately, but in years to come, young people approaching you and saying, "Ma'am, do you recognize me?" And you say, "Find it difficult with this mustache and this beard and this." And they say, "You know, my name is Ryan Fernandez, or I don't know, Jyoti Salgaonkar or something." They say, "You, what are you doing?" You say, "Ma'am, I'm the captain of a ship. Ma'am, I'm HR in Hyatt's hotel," or whatever. And you say, "But you were being punished all the while." "Yeah, you were patient with me, you persuaded me, you gave me hope. And thanks to you, I am what I am today." That, my dear friends, speaks for itself of the relevance of Don Bosco's system. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. I'm sure with your guidance, each one of us here will find the answer to what is expected of me as a Salesian educator.